Hello, I'm Toycat and welcome back to the second channel geography video. This is a series where we talk about geography and the world and stuff. And today I would like to talk to you about this great place called Europe. It's a place so nice that I even live there most of the time. And there's a really fun question I wanted to answer very quickly, which is what is the westernmost point of Europe? And obviously, ignoring the fact that we could question the existence of Europe, I mean, if you look at the 7-continent model, it's clear Europe exists, but there are some people who don't acknowledge South America and think that everyone's American. And in that point, you know what, maybe I'm an Afro-Eurasian and all of these continents are the same, but assuming you agree Europe exists as a concept, you should be able to very easily point out the westernmost point of it. And of course, it's incredibly easy. What's the westernmost point of Europe? I think you'll find that you go to Portugal and you'll see that right over here, there we go, boom, the westernmost point of Europe. It is indeed Portugal. Easy enough, I guess you could say. Well, that was easy. Video done, right? Except it's a bit more complex than that, clearly, right? Because that's the westernmost point of Europe as a geographic entity, but surely if you're going to count the geographic entity, just like the map does, you have to include islands. I mean, the UK, where I usually do live, is a part of Europe, right? Not the not the Union, but the continent. I mean, like, the fact that you would consider this gap of just 20-ish miles to be enough to not be part of the continent would be kind of absurd, right? And so clearly all islands have to belong to a continent, and so which continent does this island up here belong to? I think you'll find, according to this map, it's Europe. So boom, Iceland, if you do count it as part of Europe, then I think you'll find that this is the westernmost point of Europe, right next to where North America starts, which is generally considered to be Greenland. Some people are like, you know, really precise and they're like, oh, actually, the North American plate goes slightly through Iceland and therefore it's kind of half North American. No, that's, you know that's not how we do continents. Don't make up your own rules because it gets to make Iceland special. So the westernmost point of Europe is the westernmost point of Iceland. Except, wait a minute, you know what? If we're counting Iceland anyway, shouldn't we really be counting the fact that Portugal, you know, if we're counting islands as part of the continent, then Portugal has these islands to the west of it, which as you can see, when you click on Portugal on Google Maps, it shows you the territory of the country, and these islands, the Azores, are indeed considered to be part of Portugal. Therefore, the westernmost point is not Iceland, but it goes back to being Portugal again. The westernmost point of Europe is right over here, and wow, isn't this a beautiful little place? You could go and stay in a restaurant, get some papademos, or go to Baraka Obama. I guess that's Cuba Habana. You know what? Baraka Cabana, you know, it sounded better when I made it the president. You know, this is just a normal bar now. And this is just a normal supermarket. This is a below average supermarket on the westernmost point of Europe. Boom, video done. This is over now. I can't believe there was anything else to go through. Except actually, you know, if we're counting islands anyway, because these are on the North American plate, the only thing that makes them European is the fact that they belong to a European country, then really, I've always thought Greenland being North American is kind of an arbitrary distinction. Like, again, when you look at just how close it is to Canada, it does make sense, especially because on a spherical map, it's even closer to Canada. When you realize that, like, yeah, I guess Greenland, you know, this huge thing, which is only huge because of the Mercator protection, but we'll get into that another time. Wow, look how much smaller it gets when you see it on a real size. But Greenland is clearly the most western point in Europe because even though it's not European by plates, again, generally speaking, we're willing to change the continent boundaries to respect countries in the case of, take for example, Egypt, take for example, Panama. And so in that case, even though we don't consider Greenland to be a part of Europe, it's owned by a European country, it's part of Denmark, and therefore Greenland is in fact European, I might say, and therefore it's got to count as the westernmost point of Europe. Except actually, if we're using that definition, it doesn't have to be on European soil or continent by any count. It just has to be European owned and therefore part of Europe. Then the westernmost point of Europe would start to then be like, well, we can go even further west and be like, oh, you know this island right here, Newfoundland, one of the provinces of Canada, maybe the best province in Canada. Who knows for sure? I know for sure. It's the best province in Canada, that I've been to so far. But the thing about this you need to know is they also have this thing right here. Have you heard of Saint Pierre and Miquelon? It's a French archipelago that still does belong to the French to this day. This is a part of France. Macron is their president, and they use the, you know, like this is France. Look, this is a French ATM or French bank apparently with one review. I blew my mind. You know, so like this is a delightful place right here, and so therefore this is the, and you know what, you get the point in this video by now. If we're counting overseas territories, then obviously Bermuda is further west than that, and further west than Bermuda is the, by the way, Bermuda, am I the only one who notices that like all of the Caribbean is here together with the British Virgin Islands, Turks and the Caicos, and like, you know, there's all these delightful, you know, the Cayman Islands, all these different territories and countries and stuff, and then Bermuda is just chilling by itself in the middle of nowhere. It freaks me out. It, like, I can see why the Bermuda Triangle is such a thing. Like, there's nothing, there's no land. Like, if you crash, good luck anyone finding you, like, for real. The distance between Bermuda and mainland United States is 750 miles, which, for fun comparison, is the same distance as between Portugal and, I don't know, Rome, I'm gonna guess. Yeah, wait, no, that's 1,000. Portugal and like, I don't know, somewhere in France. There we go. That's a big distance to... Imagine if Spain didn't exist, and you can imagine what the Bermuda Triangle is like. So anyway, obviously, then from Bermuda, you go further west than that, and then you're like, well, okay, at this point, we find ourselves at the westernmost territory of Europe, the Pitcairn Islands, with a population of 50 or so, which, you know, does that count? Is 50 population enough? Yes, it is. And as you can see, there's the date line. There's no territory further west, except, of course, there's French Polynesia, which is the actual furthest west part of Europe, if you count Europe to be like the entities, the blocks that are contained within it, rather than the, you know, because geography of islands doesn't make sense anyway. Are these European islands or Pacific islands? Like, they're close to Pacific islands, but I mean, it's France. If you fly here, it's technically a domestic flight, although there's no non-stop flights right now. Isn't that wacky? The answer is yes, that is incredibly wacky. This is the westernmost point of the Earth, as I can confirm by showing you this point map right here. There is Polynesia Le Française, the furthest west point of the EU. This is an old EU map. It's got the UK overseas territories on there now too. Isn't that fun? Isn't it great how many maps have to be updated because of the EU thing? Anyway, so that is the westernmost point of Europe. We have solved our video. We can move on now. Or I could show you, like, ooh, look at some of these islands. Is there a review for this beach? There's 16 of them. Such a beautiful place. Great public beach without any people and a local snack restaurant nearby. The water is clear, but there's no reef nearby and snorkeling. Oh, these actual real reviews. I thought this was like a meme. Oh no, there's actual... Oh, okay. How do people... Like, honestly, islands scare me. As someone who lives on a very big island, islands scare me. So that is the furthest west territory. Until, of course, there's the Cook Islands, which are further west than them. No, the Cook Islands are part of New Zealand. They were transferred from the UK. I was reading into the transfer from the UK. Do you need to know this side tangent? You don't, but this channel is all about things you don't need to know. So obviously the Cook Islands are named after Captain Cook. Maybe that's not obvious, but you should know it. But I was just reading the Wikipedia page and like, you know what? I can't find their reference on this, so I'm just citing Wikipedia here now. I'm doing what your teacher told you not to. But if you read right here, the you know, colonialism's so bad, but also in the 1900, the island leaders presented a petition asking the islands, including Niue if possible, should be annexed as a British territory. And again, they cite like a book. What am I meant to do? Am I meant to read a book Wikipedia? Honestly, like, I know like book sources are way better than website sources, but like I can't verify that book actually said that thing, right? What am I going to do with that? Do I just take their word for it? Like, that's the opposite of what you want to do with Wikipedia, right? Anyway, so we shouldn't start a Wikipedia debate while we're here, but they do drive on the left side of the road all the way over here. Do you think in French Polynesia they drive on the right side of the road? You know, I can't let this video go any further until I solve this one, right? I bet we could just I bet it'll just say on the Wikipedia page, right? We just gotta find French Polynesia. So in French, like, they should drive on the right of the road, but like, what difference does it really make, right? So, no, they drive on the right side of the road. That's interesting. That's so bizarre that like they're probably like two of the closest countries to each other, right? Although they're not close by any sense. But like over here, drive on the right. Over here, left-hand side. Huh. I guess they're on the left and right sides of the screen. Anyway, this is the furthest west point of Europe, except here's the thing, right? West and east are entirely arbitrary. I mean, like, they exist as concepts. But like, where you draw the line of, you know, this is the date line, this is where west and east collide with each other. But the west and east, like, unlike north and south, where there is a north pole, a physical top and bottom of the earth, where you can only go south and north respectively. West and east you can go forever. I can prove this to you by scrolling infinitely across the Earth, but basically, because the Earth is a sphere, wait, I can prove this with my trusty, I have something around here. You know, I don't have my Earth ball anymore. This is very sad, I threw it away. But just like this toy minecart, as you can see, it spins around, and you never reach an end because it's a three-dimensional object just spinning around. Anyway, so because of that, but you know, I'm gonna miss that map, that little ball. You know, it's very sad. This is why moving is hard. Anyway, so basically, because there is no such thing as West and East, really, you could then make the argument the West doesn't stop at the dateline. French Polynesia is not the furthest west point of Europe, because what about these guys? What about these fellas over here? Indeed, if you look at the Treaty of Tordesillas, I'm probably saying that horrifically wrong, you can see how they divided Portugal and Spain with the Pope's blessing, that is real by the way, divided the world in twain, to be roughly here. Anything to the east was Portugal's, so Africa and Australasia, etc. Even Antarctica, apparently. Anyway, so anything to the east, anything to the west was Spain's. And as you can see, Spain therefore had exclusive right to all of this territory, which they took full advantage of. But the interesting thing here is that eventually east and west have to meet. And so halfway around the world, you can see Portugal's reign runs out, and so does Spain. This side of the map never came in handy. This side actually was fairly well respected. This side of the map never really became anything. Spain mostly stayed out of Africa. Portugal mostly stayed out of Central and South America, besides that one big country that is a big Portuguese colony. But like, basically, they did the world this way. And so really, if you want to work out where East and West stop, you shouldn't use these arbitrary date lines, but instead you should use Europe as your middle point. But that's where things get even more interesting, because obviously the middle point of this map, the middle point of every map, is the United Kingdom. The very middle point of the globe, because there's no such thing as an actual middle point, but the middle point we colloquially use, because London being the global city of arguably now, but especially back then, basically the middle point is here. This is the prime meridian. This is what we decided, if we have to have a middle, is going to be somewhere. So this right here is this over here on the avenue. This is slightly to the west of the center of the world. This right here is slightly to the east. That is real. I have walked through this park. I have taken public transport that went a little bit both ends of it. Kind of fun, in my opinion. But you all the time, if you live in London, actually not all the time. If you live in East London, you probably cross all the time to go to and from work. You are crossing the center of the earth as defined by humans, so it's kind of less cool. But anyway, so that is the prime meridian. And so that means that the French Polynesia, being the westernmost point of the world as measured from Europe, is kind of true. Obviously, if you're going to use the true center of Europe, you'd move it slightly to the right. But if you did that, what would actually just end up happening is French Polynesia would be closer to the edge. Even if you, unless you use the most easternmost point of Europe, which would be roughly here, then eventually you'd cut off French Polynesia, and just about the Pitcairn Islands would be the westernmost point of Europe again, which is sad. I was hoping we could keep going further west until we're like, actually, because again, you know, that's only if you say that you have to, you know, like if we acknowledge East exists, which, you know, I've never trusted those East people. I mean, I don't believe in South. I think there's just America and America. I'm blind. You know, I don't see, you know, cardinal directions. I just see Americans, which is why it's so annoying when people on the internet say people from the United States of America are Americans. No, Brazilians are Americans. Argentinians are Americans, because I don't see directions. I'm literally blind to directions. Someone help me out with them. What's going on right here? And so, therefore, I don't acknowledge East either. I just know West. I just understand what West is. Are there things that aren't West? I wouldn't know, because I am West man. And so, therefore, the westernmost point of Europe, if you scroll all the way around, comes right back round to Russia, and again, where we find Europe. And so the westernmost point of Europe, if you think about it, and you have to think about it a lot, is actually the Ural Mountains, the point where Europe stops again. Because obviously, you know, that once you hit Europe, that's where you know you've gone west enough. So yeah, this is the westernmost point of Europe in Russia. You might say that's not valid, but if you think about it, anything is valid if you just use enough words and reasons. And I hope I proved that to you with today's video. So, before I leave, I'd like to mention, this video is brought to you by me. I made this video with my own hands, and this is sponsored by me. So if you would like to help out the channel, then remember to watch this video. Did you watch this video already? Good news. You did what the sponsor wanted you to. Boom. We're good at this. So yeah, if you want to give me money as well, I've had a Patreon forever because I had this plan, and I never used the Patreon for the plan, and now people have started to find the Patreon again, and I figured rather than making it this weird blind thing for just whatever, do you want to find Patreon? You can. If you again, literally, this is not a necessary thing. To me, like, I think there is a fun sales pitch I could make, because I think the idea of having income that is not derived entirely from video to video allows me to make videos more when I'm passionate, as opposed to trying to have, like, to me right now the goal is to make as much content that can ideally find as many people as possible, and that's fun and totally still a goal, but also it means I can do fun things like release, what is this, 5 videos in just over a week. And yeah, thank you to people over there for making that happen. But let's be honest, if you don't Patreon, nothing will happen to you. This is the worst sales pitch in history, isn't it? But that's the real sales pitch. Yeah, no, honestly, yeah, if you give me money, it's not going to make the channel content any better. Like, you know, we're pretty maxed out here. I'm just using the webcam and the green screen I use for regular stuff. And then I'm on Google Maps. So if you give me money, it's entirely going to go into the pot to buy things like ice cream and Bucks Fizz. Look at my delightful Bucks Fizz bottle. See, it's green screened out. That's the quality you expect on this channel. So yeah, best sales pitch in the world? I think you'll find so. Thank you for watching. Just remember, the westernmost point of Europe is either Portugal, Iceland, Greenland, French Polynesia, or Russia, depending on how you're counting that. So I'll see you in another video. Unless I don't. Who knows, you know. On the internet these days, nothing is certain, besides the never-ending death of the algorithm, and indeed, the heat death of the universe, including you, and everyone you've ever known or loved. Goodbye.